Bengals fans are amazing. They're resilient, they're tough, but they're fun. And I'm really excited to hopefully meet a lot more of you.
Isaac has the big game. Then we became a real balanced offense for the playoff run, which I thought was really important.
He put on the greatest route running exhibition I have ever seen in my life.
He was football 24/7, and that was the greatest part of Chad.
At times, the early part, I would tell him when we were throwing deep passes, I said, don't wait too long, because I'm going to get away. If you ain't going to have the arm to get there. So, I want to run to the ball,
Well, Duke, looks like Duke's in the waiting room. I don't want to keep Duke waiting. He gave us a very limited amount of time. I know he's a busy man. Duke, what's going on, big dog? How you doing, buddy?
Jim, how are you, man? Thanks for having me on. Yeah,
Hey.
I'm real busy. I'm sitting on my porch.
Yeah, well, hey. Have a little drink going on there.
Joe Burrow has played in big games his entire life, and I would think he will be a steady hand at the bow of the ship. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if they take him all the way to the Super Bowl. I really wouldn't.
Good evening. Live from the Betfred Studios in Greater Cincinnati, luxurious Indianapolis, and frigid Canada. Welcome to the final edition of Season 3 of Bengal Jim and Friends, brought to you by Gold Star Chili. And now here's our fearless leader, Jimmy.
He's been working it out all week.
He's been saving that all season. Good job, Tom.
Killed it.
The rehearsals did not do that justice. Good job, buddy.
Oh, Lord. Hey, real quick, guys, just want to kind of go down what's going on tonight. We're going to talk a little bit of – Tom's going to talk a little bit about Thursday night schedule. This is our last season of Episode 3, but we're going to talk about some special things we got going on in the offseason here starting this Thursday. We're going to talk about some charity updates. Tony's going to give us an update where we kind of ended the season. Brian Bosarge from NFL Draft Countdown is going to be here. Get ready, guys. Anything you want to talk about, NFL Draft, Senior Bowl – hell, free agency, whatever it is. Let's have some fun with Brian. Get your questions ready to go for Brian. We're going to talk about coaches, guys. We at the success of the team, man. We got we potentially could be losing Brian Callahan, maybe Coach Lou, and potentially Coach Pritchard here at the end of the day. A lot of interviews going on with these guys. We'll talk in more detail about that, and we got to get in and talk about AJ Green tonight as well, guys. So a lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff to cover here. So Tom, I'll kind of kick it to you right now, bud. Let's talk about Thursday night.
Well, we're all very hopeful. We've all been, waiting, even in the infancy of the show, even before I was on. We've all been hoping and pushing for more Bengals in the Hall of Fame. Not because we just want more Bengals, but because those players deserved it so much. Looks like we kind of leaked out that Willie Anderson will not be making it this year. Doesn't mean it's not coming in future years and very soon, but it doesn't look like Willie's going to make it. We still have a chance with Ken Riley. He is a senior committee nominee, and we will find out that vote, we believe, Thursday night. So Thursday night, please check Twitter, every way that you follow this show. We will have a special show Thursday night. This is the last show for Season 3, but we'll be coming back on Thursday night. We're going to have a very special guest, whether the vote is positive or negative. We're going to have a very special guest on, so it will be worth it. We'll be the first Jimmy, can we say who the special guest is?
I think they can read between the lines, good or bad. We're going to have that guest on. And, guys, I'm feeling pretty positive about Ken, man. I just, I'm hoping this is, like they said, a formality when you get to this point in the senior committee. So, again, I know the family doesn't want to hear that. They've been told this many, many times before that Ken was getting in and he wound up not getting in. But he's this close, guys. And I do think this vote is a formality, and I think we're going to have some positive news here Thursday. So we will see. We will see, guys. I mean, everybody's worked really hard on this. I mean, all of Houday Nation, all the stats and figures and tagging the Pro Football Hall of Fame and messages and all the great stuff that we're trying to stir conversation around the country about our Bengal legends. It's going well, guys. I think a lot of us have worked really hard and persistently over a period of time to to get to this day, Thursday. So I'm feeling good about it. We don't know for sure, but man, I tell you what, I hope it happens for the family's sake. One last thing I'll say on that, guys. We always think about the player, but what we don't think about is how it affects these families of the players. Guys, until we got close to this thing a few years ago, we had no idea how this affected the families. And we've seen it firsthand. And these families are as entrenched in this decision, in this discussion, as the player themselves. So it's unbelievable.
And I keep thinking back to that inaugural Jungle to the Hall 2 years ago in Canton. So many people, I mean, was it like 10 different states showed up? We just saw Mon say hi from Florida, AJ from New York. We had people, Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, out west, Iowa, that were there. And, I really think that helped spur the movement, along with a lot of other things that Bengals fans did, the Bengals organization did. But from all of us, thank you, because I think that certainly increased the spotlight on those that were deserving. And, we're going to continue to do more of those. But thank you, everybody, and stay tuned. As we kind of enter the offseason a bit too soon, we will be doing another Jungle to the Hall, and look forward to that.
Yeah, and just give everybody an update. We're in the beginning stages. Jungle to the Hall 1 was outstanding. Jungle to the Hall was great. We have got some things that we're talking about that are on the table for Jungle to the Hall 3 coming up here. Just stay tuned. We got a lot of people working really hard on the third Jungle to the Hall. We're never going to stop this. We got so many guys we're going to keep focusing on. So that Jungle to the Hall will be something we do annually. So really fun time. And like James said, bringing all these fans from across the country in for this event has been absolutely unbelievable. So
a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I think that segues us to Tony.
Yeah, absolutely. Tony, give us an update, brother. I mean, this has been the most amazing year, a great year on the field for the players, but a great year. The podcast, the tailgate, the platform that we are using for these charities, man. Give an update on what Who Dey Nation has done.
Yeah, so as we all know, we had a goal of $75,000 this year, and we absolutely blew it out of the water. We are very close to 130,000 as we close out this season. It's phenomenal. We've been able to serve 25 different charities and then one family. If you guys remember, through Logan's effort, we've had a phenomenal year. And it's like you said, Jimmy, to use this platform, to use our tailgates, to use our meet and greets, to be able to help all these charities has been great. So with our new season coming up, with the new football season, I'm kind of curious what our goal will be since we're at 130. So we'll have to discuss that, I guess. But when we put Who Dey Nation and all of us together and use everything that we have, we can do anything. So it's been a very blessing to be a part of this group. And, our top 10 charities that we've been able to do have been over $5,000, KAA being the most that we've been able to contribute to with over 27,000. And it's just been a lot of fun, and let's keep it rolling.
Yeah, I think probably when Beer Fest Craig gets back from his Beer Fest up in Cleveland, we'll be getting together as a group to kind of start planning for this upcoming season. And I just want to let you know, Tony's probably going to have a very aggressive goal for us for this next coming season.
Yeah, I think we should. I mean, if you look at what we did this year, I don't think 150 or 200,000 is out of the question for next year. So we'll see what happens.
Oh yeah.
And I was just thinking of a lot of the great prizes that people walked away with. You mentioned Logan Wilson, game used jersey. We had the tickets for the AFC Championship. Joe Burrow signed stuff, Jamar Chase, and we want to thank our friends at Bengal Bids that were very instrumental in that. And again, we'll, as Tony and Jimmy said, we'll have meetings to discuss the plan for next year. And if you have an idea, we did the ticket thing for the AFC Championship last minute. If you have an outside the box thought that'll raise money, let us know, because we're open to any and all ideas, despite how crazy they might be. So it's going to be fun. And a lot of planning goes on. And Jamie, go ahead.
Yeah, well, sorry. Seeing this is the last episode, Jimmy, you did well this season, but Chuck is calling you out. You just said the C word.
I did not. I'm going to go back and replay that.
You made it all season without doing it, but you saved it for the last episode.
I'm throwing a red flag on this. I want to review.
Well, if it's the same refs we had against Kansas City, then nothing to see here, guys. Let's just replay the down.
Hey, so just to reiterate, I think Jennifer in the chat area is saying something that I think we talk about all the time, because I think it's important. If you help a charity, especially individual charities, it is important to ask questions. What percentage goes to that charity and what percentage goes to the people facilitating that charity? Tony, give these guys an update on how much money James is taking for his hair gel and how much money Jamie's using to shine his head. I'm just saying.
I flew first class to New York.
We take absolutely $0. 100% of those proceeds go to every charity. That's something that we are proud of, that we want to commit to. We do our transparency, as you always know. We post everything on social media. It's very important to us, I think, as a group, to make sure that you guys know where the money's going. I keep very good records, so if anybody ever wants to question us, you just call me out, and I got it covered for us.
So if you missed a post online when we one of us in the group here posts something about a picture of a check or a receipt, we post every single one of them. So there's transparency with that, because we think that's critically important to everything that we do. So James,
along those, I'm just going to ignore that one.
It's the wrong time to put that up. As Jimmy's explaining that we're fully transparent, I put that comment. Everyone starts laughing,
But even, last show, somebody sent me $100 and said donate it to whatever charity. So I responded back. I think that one was Special Olympics that we did. And it's just, again, we'll just pass it through. And, maybe again, looking forward to next year. If there's an idea, let us know. If there's a new charity, let us know, because we're always looking to work with great charities around the Cincinnati area. I know I had a buddy from high school that's involved with Make-A-Wish Foundation that reached out, saw everything that we're doing, and had some ideas for that. So again, we'll discuss all this. We're open to the two ideas on what we can do to make things better, and let us know.
Yep. Well, Tom, I think we go ahead and kick off our guest for this evening. Go ahead, buddy.
Very good. Well, if we can pop Brian in from the green room. There we go, Brian Bosarge, a.k.a. Deep Fried Draft. But last year, stepped away from that moniker and joined up with one of the more reputable places, other reputable places, when it comes to NFL draft coverage, NFL Draft Countdown, where he and a couple other gents run it, mark it, decide who's going where. And Brian also has a special keen interest as a Bengals fan from in the deep South. So he's a perfect guest. And unfortunately, he was foolish enough to tell me he'd not only come on tonight, but a couple times before the draft. And if my Canadian partner and I can put it together, hopefully draft night, like we did a draft show last year. So, Brian, welcome again to Bengal Jim and Friends.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Like I said before we got on tonight, it sucks that we're having to have this conversation about 2 or 3 weeks too early, but, alas, here we are.
Here we are. And then one thing, Brian and Tom failed to mention, you are like all things Reese's Senior Bowl expert. You just set up camp, I think, on the visitor sideline in Mobile for 1 week. You don't leave the turf and know everything that goes on there. And, that was last week and some exciting stuff happening. So let's talk about that as we kick things off.
Yeah. The fortunate thing for me, the premier All-Star game is 3 miles from the front porch of my house. So that is very helpful in all things evaluation. But when it comes to Cincinnati Bengals, it was really good this week, because I think the positions that the Bengals are going to look to stock up on the draft were a big part of probably the best position groups at the Reese's Senior Bowl this year. I think because we're going to be looking at, interior defensive line, maybe some edge guys, corners, tight ends, I think is going to be a big part. Interior offensive line, thought we had got away from that, but our depth has shown up. So that was probably one of the best position groups in Mobile this week, was the interior offensive line.
Any particular players that you want to talk about? We can start with O-line. Obviously, we saw what happened when we lost 3 starters. A thing of angst the last couple of years. Any names that you want to throw out there that impressed you last week?
Yeah, I don't know if they'll be willing to spend first round capital on the position, and I don't know that I would want them to. But a guy that you might look at 28 would be Osiris Torrance, the guard from Florida, who I think is probably maybe the top interior offensive lineman in this class. Those guys tend to drop down the board just a little bit, so he could be on the board there, maybe not. Maybe in the second round, you could look at a guy like John Michael Schmitz, who's a center by trade at Minnesota, but has the versatility to be able to play guard as well. Maybe in that third round area, if that's where you want to attack, there's a guy from Chattanooga named McClendon Curtis. Now, last year, Cole Strange from Chattanooga went in the first round to New England, surprised everybody. McClendon Curtis, I think, is just as good a prospect as Strange, but has more versatility. Played center this week where he hadn't before, played both guard positions, played right tackle during the game because of some guys that kind of opted out of the game. So kind of got pushed out there. Probably not his best role in the NFL. Interior is going to be where he's at. So that's just a few names, and there's a lot more. This is a very deep interior offensive line class. So the Bengals could maybe grab one, maybe two of those guys. The only thing that concerns me about the Bengals attacking that position is that's kind of why we're still talking about drafting that position, because they have the guys they have drafted. They're either not developing them well or they're just picking the wrong guys. I don't know if that's the case. Be it Deontay Smith, some of these other Hakeem Adeniji, some of these other guys, they're just not working out. I don't know if that's the organization's fault evaluating or the organization's fault developing. That's a bigger topic for another day, probably.
Right. So give us. So the Bengals are drafting in this year's draft 28th, correct? Not the 29th,
yes,
because of
28th.
Gotcha. So look, guys. Thanks everybody for watching right now. Brian, thanks for being with us, man. If you have any questions, guys, about the draft, Senior Bowl, hell, throw out some free agency questions to Brian, whatever you guys want. We'll throw them at Brian here in a few minutes. But talk about, we always talk about projections, right? But let's talk about those big, one or two big names, Brian, that you think potentially could slip to 28 to our Cincinnati Bengals that we would just run up there and not even hesitate picking if one or two guys slip. What are those names?
What's position is becoming more intriguing to me at 28 is tight end.
Yeah,
because Hayden Hurst is a free agent. I don't know if I want to pay him the money that he may command in the open market. And I'm also a Gamecock, so that's kind of hard to say. I want to see those Gamecocks stay in Cincinnati. But if the money gets a bit too high and I know I'm going to have to spend that money elsewhere, maybe I start looking at the draft. I think you need to come out of this draft with two guys. So there's a player in the first round that I think could be available at 28, maybe. Depends on how the combine goes for him. But we dive into the University of Georgia a lot, or have in the past. Darnell Washington is a 6'7", 260-pound freak athlete. And, a lot of the tight ends these days are more of those split tight ends, split out wide. They don't like to get their hands dirty. This guy will knock your head off as a blocker, be it as an interior blocker or out in the edge in the run game. Darnell Washington, I think, is going to run maybe in the 4.5 range at 6'7", 260. Ooh. And he doesn't have the production that you would normally want to see from a tight end prospect. So you're doing a lot of projecting here, which is why I think he maybe could be available at 28. But he wasn't the main target at tight end at Georgia because of Brock Bowers, who's probably going to be a top 5 pick in the 2024 draft class. So Darnell Washington's a guy I think you could look at. Another guy who is probably a B+, A- blocker, but has been highly productive in college, is Dalton Kincaid from Utah, who is smaller, probably about a 6'4", 250, and I think is going to be a similar type athlete to Washington. So those are two guys that I think that I feel could be very good for the Bengals offense, and would give Joe another guy. And you have to start thinking about, okay, if Tyler Boyd gets expendable, maybe not this year, but after next year, you're going to need that third guy over the middle, especially if you can re-sign T and keep him together with Jamar. So you might be looking ahead to that almost slot type takeaway as well.
Interesting. Tony, I know you had something for him as well.
Yes, he already kind of brought it up with Mr. Higgins. So what do you think our future looks like with him, with us being the 5th ranked team with our cap space that we have, and we got to pay Joe. We got to look forward to maybe getting the chase figured out. Where do you think T. Higgins is going to fall out in all this?
I think they can sign T. Higgins, and I think the money's not the problem. The cap space is not going to be the problem. The cap space in Joe Burrow's extension that I think is getting overblown is he still has the 4th year and the 5th year option on his contract. So the 2023 and 2024 cap hits aren't really an issue. And the cap is going to explode. The NFL's got the YouTube TV Sunday ticket contract fixing to kick in. The network TV contracts are fixing to kick in. The salary cap's about to go up probably another $50-60 million. Not worried about the cap hit for Joe Burrow's contract or a potential T. Higgins contract. Now, cash on hand is the issue for the Bengals, and always kind of has been. But I think they can keep Jamar and keep T. Higgins. It's the other areas they may have to kind of worry about a little bit. But I'm not overly concerned. Now, the only thing with T I'm concerned with is his agent, who is notoriously a hard man to deal with.
Yep.
What about shifting gears? We know the line issues. Cornerback is, some say, is a need, maybe with Cheeto coming back. You mentioned South Carolina. You've got a good corner there in Cam Smith. Maybe safety. We have both safeties that could go. We got the Brown brothers in Illinois, the one that's a stud running back, which I think could be another need. His brother at safety. So let's talk about the secondary first, and then we'll transition into what I think is a very deep running back class, especially later in the rounds.
Yeah, I think corner is another spot. I like tight end. I think corner is another spot because I'm concerned with, you got Cheeto coming off the injury as well. I think Eli Apple's probably gone. They may be about done with his shenanigans as well. So it might be a nice time for a break there from Eli Apple. There's some guys that could be available at 28 are very intriguing. Maybe a little undersized guy at Utah, Clark Phillips III, but highly productive. You mentioned Cam Smith. That's another guy. I think he could be gone before the Bengals come on the clock there at 28, but 6 foot 185, very aggressive corner, and didn't get targeted a whole lot in 2023. The man who got targeted a lot was one of the stars of the Senior Bowl this week on that defense, and that's Darius Rush from South Carolina, who's 6'2", 196. Man had 4 interceptions in the one-on-one drills at Senior Bowl. It's almost unheard of to have one, much less man had 4 in back-to-back days. I don't think he's a first-round target, maybe even second, but you're looking at third-round area, I think Darius Rush could come into play there. Another guy who could come into play at the end of the first round, Emmanuel Forbes, very twitchy corner, 6 foot 180 out of Mississippi State. Could be a guy that you could see there. And a name that Bengal fans should be familiar with, but would be mighty ironic and hilarious if he to be still on the board. And that's Penn State cornerback Joey Porter Jr. I know, but he's a very, very good
wait. Who are we talking about again? I didn't hear that.
Joey Porter Jr.
Yeah, that's
quarterback out of Penn State. Yeah,
anybody that's brought up to pull hair doesn't belong as a Bengal.
What about we talk about the physical traits of the cornerback of Georgia, Ringo? Is that his name?
Yeah,
maybe
Keely
later. Yeah, as an option too in the secondary there.
Yeah, he's kind of fallen down a little bit. The more his tape's kind of up and down. Got exposed a little bit in the playoff games. Kind of people got scrambling to go back, and he takes a lot of chances that are unnecessary. So it's something that teams are going to go back and look at. It might get erased if he goes and blisters, great times at the combine. He's also had some injury issues. So I think that's kind of what's pushing Keely Ringo down the board just a little bit.
Tom, go ahead.
Thanks, Brian. I agree with you where all these positions are possibilities. We can use depth. We need depth. But at the same time, we may not be desperate in any of those positions, which is good. That's where you want to be on draft day. You want to take the best player. And I think with so many positions that we're talking about, we're going to get somebody who can step in and help. That being said, none of it matters if we can't protect number 9. Nothing matters if Joe Burrow is hurt, harassed, or has a line that doesn't allow him to play as good as he can. And to date, as an NFL player, he hasn't had that. Going left to right with you real quick. Left tackle. We now have 2 guys that people think can play it. But I was talking to Jimmy about this earlier. I think that you apply the quarterback rule there. If you have 2 left tackles, you may not have 1. Do you see anybody there that might be able to help through the draft? Do you think they're going to have to spend money as a free agent to come in? But it has to improve there.
I agree, but I think the potential left tackles, the value's not going to match up to where they're going to be on the board. They're not going to go up. That's just not their way. So I don't think that the value is going to match up at left tackle to be something that you're going to consider at 28. You could see them draft a guy maybe in the second round. I think the value could be more along the lines of the right tackle position, where I don't know that getting out of Lyle Collins' contract might not be the worst idea, be it a cap cut or whatever, because I know we were all excited when, he was brought in, but even before the injury, the play I don't think was up to par.
Agreed.
So if a guy that falls down, that I think, Cincinnati and Ohio State players may know, DeJuan Jones only practiced one day at the Senior Bowl, but the man had an 89.5-inch wingspan at his measure, 6'8", 375. And, I hear 375, I'm thinking this guy's fat, right? Got to be. No, sir. He looked great. And the one day of practice he was out there, dominant. He ended up getting some sort of I don't want to say he had a concussion, but they said it was a symptom similar to a concussion. So they held him out precautionarily the rest of the week. So we didn't get to see him in any other practice of the game. But he's a guy that could be available at 28, but is a right tackle that I think fans should be interested in.
You jumped over to right tackle, and that's fine to keep James on so he doesn't log off. Let's get away from the Ohio State players. The young man from Tennessee. Either in round 1 or 2, or if they trade back out of round 1 because they're so far back, if there's something attractive there. There are those that say he's a plug-and-play player in both the run and the pass, and we got to have guys that can open up some holes too.
Yeah, he's really emerged in the last few weeks and was one of the more dominant tackles at the Senior Bowl. You're talking about Darnell Wright, the right tackle from Tennessee. Very, very good player. And I agree that I think he could. I don't know the trade back he's available. Depends on how far you go back. I think 28 might be the time that you could pull the plug or pull the trigger on somebody like Darnell Wright. I'm glad you brought him up because he's another guy that really stood out at in all 3 Senior Bowl practices and in the Senior Bowl game. And then you go back and watch his tape. Yeah, very, very good senior season.
Hey, Brian,
I'm sorry, Hold on. While we're on the tackle spot. Paul Alexander mentioned our Syracuse guy, Matt Bergeron. What did you see from him? Somebody that started as a true freshman, a Canadian, started at right tackle and then moved over to left tackle. So does have that versatility. Where do you think he's going to fall? Second round?
Yeah, I think he's going to end up in the second round. I was going to save him for some Syracuse talk I was told we were going to have later. But Bergeron is definitely a very good prospect. I think second round, maybe early second round. Depends on what I love about the NFL draft is it almost like you see the run, right? It almost always feels like there's a run at a certain position, and then once that starts happening, teams start to panic, and those guys go. So I think Bergeron, teams when they start restacking that board overnight from Thursday to Friday, and he's still sitting there, he could be gone in the first 1 or 2, maybe 3 or 4 picks at the top of round 2.
Hey, Brian, before we get to some of our viewer questions, we have a ton of them in here right now for you, so we'll get to those in a second. My friends can't type in a message and ask a question or to asking me questions via text messages, but they're asking about UC players, potential first round or early round draft picks from the University of Cincinnati.
All right, let me pull that up on the old spreadsheet here. There were a couple at the Senior Bowl that intrigued me. Maybe not as a high pick, but Trey Tucker as a potential slot option. Bengals need to go into the season with a number 4 receiver. I don't think we can continue to count on Trent and Irwin or some of those guys to be that number 4 option. And somebody like Trey Tucker is a 4th round pick. Maybe 5th round pick, also gives you some punt return versatility there. could be a guy that the Bengals target. Tyler Scott, wide receiver. I've got to go back and watch the tape on him. There has been buzz picking up on him in the last few days amongst draft Twitter. I am completely behind on him, so that's somebody I definitely want to get in. One of those tight ends, we talked about tight end position, second, third round. Josh Wiley was down here at the Senior Bowl. I think is a very intriguing option. Doesn't block as well as some of the other guys. If you're looking for special teams depth at the linebacker position, Ivan Pace Jr. Measured in a little shorter, but highly productive player. Cincinnati had 11 tackles in the Senior Bowl game on Saturday. So those are some of the players from Cincinnati, University of Cincinnati, that I think are going to be good options.
A couple local high school kids there, LaSalle High School kid and a Colerain High School kid that you just talked about as well. So, Jamie, I know we have a lot of viewer questions. You want to throw some of those up now?
Well, if I can just hold up, Jamie, for just saying, Brian, since we're focusing in on colleges before we go to our many viewer questions, I am getting a text. I don't know if any of the other guys have gotten a text. It's kind of a tradition with you. And, we're asking for a friend. Can you please, in a capsule form, give an update on the Syracuse guys that look to go in the draft this year? Jimmy, did you get the same text?
I did. I was hoping you'd bring this up, Tom.
There's only two others. There's only Garrett Williams, who's coming off an ACL. I'll let Brian talk about that, and Sean Tucker is the other one.
It's actually three more. We've talked about Matthew Bergeron. Bergeron is going to be the highest drafted player. The next you mentioned Sean Tucker. I'm higher on Sean Tucker than I think a lot of the other guys are. His feet are some of the most electric feet of any running back in this class. He catches the ball well, runs it, but I think he's going to measure in a little small, going to kind of push his back. And plus, this running back class is sick, guys. We should be able to get a good running back from this group in the third, fourth, fifth round. That's going to help the team next year. But I think Tucker could go in that third to fourth round range. Garrett Williams coming off the ACL. So that's kind of puts his value in question a little bit, right? We don't know if before the injury, potential first round guy. Now I think, second to fourth round depends on, what his recovery looks like from the injury at corner. And the fourth guy is linebacker Michael Jones. Had a great performance at the NFLPA Bowl out in Pasadena a few weeks ago, but only 5'11", so undersized, another one of those fifth round, sixth round guys that are going to contribute on your special teams to be a reserve linebacker. I think we're going to lose one. So one's going to have to – I think we're going to lose Jermaine Pratt to free agency. So I think Keem Davis-Gaither is going to probably come up to take his spot. Therefore, that's going to open up a huge hole on special teams that you're going to have to replace with the Keem Davis-Gaither. So you're going to need to bring in another guy that's going to kind of fill that reserve role. So Michael Jones is another one of those players that could fill that.
Jamie, seeing a lot of talk there in the chat about the running back situation. You want to go ahead and segue to the 94 running back questions we see?
Sure, we'll start with that. So obviously, I think a lot of us were talking last week that Mixon could be a cap casualty, and then obviously the news that came out with charges and then charges dropped. What's the thought with the Bengals? Are they Mixon coming back, stick with Perine, or is there a different direction they go?
I think they're going to keep them both. At least for this year. Whether we like it or not, I think Mixon's a big locker room guy, right? The team loves this guy. They rally around his energy and that of that nature. Do I want to keep paying a running back that much money? No, I wouldn't have paid. I'm going to be honest. I wouldn't have paid him the money they did the first time. I'm not very pro give a running back a second contract ever. So, but I think that's what's going to happen. And I think they're probably going to bring P. Ryan back on another 1 or 2 year deal, probably $3.5-4 million per, just because they like his ability to pass block. So that's why I think a third running back in the middle rounds, they're going to look at is going to be, sort of that the way they go. Now, if something changes, like especially if these charges actually become, I know they were dropped or whatever, but if something else comes up about it, then maybe you start to reevaluate that. Mixon becomes that cap casualty because of the press and all that. Then you start looking at maybe second round on the running back and you attack it there. Our latest mock draft this week on the site, my partner had his mock go up. He actually had the Bengals picking a running back in the first round. I'm totally against that because I don't think any team should ever do it. But the running back he had picking was the overall consensus best running back in his class, and that's Bijan Robinson out of Texas. So there's that.
Interesting.
Hey, Brian, with that though, piggybacking, a couple of things. One, Joe Mixon, since he got here, has been a fixture in the community. He has behaved himself impeccably. You see him, charity events, high school football games, college football games, approachable. Hopefully these charges are unfounded, but like you say, if they are, certainly not with the Bengals. The Bengals have gone out of their way to not have these kind of things happen. And also, he was a Marvin Lewis guy. He was not a Zach Taylor pick. And there was a little rift from the Super Bowl till about the beginning of this season. He and Zach really didn't talk. There were a couple key plays in the Super Bowl. He thought he should have gotten the ball and didn't. So, and I don't know. I don't know if the Bengals would be one to approach him to get that cap number down, or, maybe in summer save $10 million.
Well, renegotiating a deal is generally not their style, right? It's not something we've ever seen them do. And the reason that I think there was a rift there between Zach and Joe Mixon is he can't pass block. So that's a problem, right? I mean, in the AFC Championship game this past, 2 weeks ago against KC, P. Ryan was on the field, 60+% of the snaps? You're paying your running back $10 million a year, and he's on the field a third of the game? That's not going to fly, right? So, or it shouldn't fly. So it's something that needs to be talked about at a bigger level. I agree. Like I said, will my feelings get hurt if they move on from Joe Mixon this offseason? Absolutely not. But I'm with you and guys, you're talking about him, the community and everything. I mean, up to these charges coming out, he's been a model citizen since he came into the league. This is the first time you've really heard anything negative, about Joe Mixon. So it's a slippery slope, I guess, from both perspectives. But I mean, like I said, I can see it going either way.
I
got a two.
I love Joe Mixon, but I wouldn't be surprised, Brian, if they move on from him. I hope that's not the case. I love the guy, but I wouldn't be shocked at all.
Okay, got a two-part question coming up. Jennifer says, I know we're talking about the draft. Who are we looking at in free agency? And I'll make this a two-parter because we did talk about potential draft options for the O-line, but if we can also talk about who's available maybe in free agency that can help beef up that line and anybody that the Bengals can go after.
I'm going to be honest, guys. I don't think if there is a top-tier free agent at the offensive line position, the Bengals are going to be in on. I just don't. I don't think that's where they're going to choose to spend their money. I think what you're going to see, and I think what you should see, is them bring in maybe another guard to compete with Cordell Volson, who, despite starting every game as a rookie, he was a fourth-round rookie. You can get better. So you can bring in – that's why I say don't rule out drafting a guard early and, competing with Volson at left guard. Like if Osiris Torrance is available at 28, he's a better player than Volson is just based off the draft capital you spent. So I think signing a veteran, guard, not saying sign Quentin Spain, but somebody of that caliber, type of speak, that's going to cost about that much, would be a guy that you're going to see. I don't think any high ticket free agent that's out there, you're going to see the Bengals bring in on the offensive line.
A couple more here to go through. Talking about potentially losing Hayden Hurst. What's thoughts on Wilcox taking over the tight end position?
As a starter, no. I think Wilcox is a special teams low end tight end too. I think he's a tight end 3 on the roster that's going to play all 4 of your special teams units and, can come in and spell help. I feel the same way about Devin Asiasi. I don't think there's much there to get worked up about. That's why I think if I'm the Bengals, I'm drafting a tight end early, maybe day 1, definitely day 2 if we didn't approach that position in day 1. And then the 5th or 6th round, I'm looking at who's the best available tight end that's a freak athlete. If there's a position in this draft where you just say, screw it, I'm drafting an athlete, I don't care what he did, tight end's the position that's going to pay off for you. 49ers did it with George Kittle, 5th round draft pick. 5th round draft pick. but was a freak athlete coming out of Iowa, and it's paid off. That's the position you if you're going to take a lottery ticket in those late rounds, tight end's the place to do it.
I've heard no talk of the Bengals trading up, but is there a possibility they trade down?
Always a possibility they trade down because they do it all the time.
Yeah.
Trade up, no, never happens.
Yeah. Not their style.
Let's go back to the running back discussion, because I think that the money Joe Mixon's getting, $10 million, which I think when I looked at the franchise tag value is right there. So it's certainly on the high end. He didn't perform that way this year, despite the locker room. And we mentioned the locker room. Look what happened to CJ Uzomah last year. He was a locker room guy too. And he went to New York. They didn't keep him. So I guess I'm in the boat where I don't see Joe Mixon on the roster next year. We mentioned Sean Tucker, the kid out of Illinois, the Brown kid is a stud, the kid out of Minnesota, the kid out of Tulane, the kid out of Pittsburgh, I think are all good values in that mid-round. If you had to pick that 3rd through 5th round, Brian, who would the running back you'd scoop up?
Oh, there's several guys that I would target in that 3rd to 5th round area. I think Kenny McIntosh from Georgia could be available there. Kid I like, despite his 5'9", 185 size, is Devin Achane out of Texas A&M. Kid was an Olympic-level track star coming out of high school. I mean, speed to burn. And so I immediately think, okay, he's a gadget back. I watched his tape this year. No, he's getting the yards between the tackles. And then on top of that, he's got the home run hitting ability. Another guy, I think later round, 5th, 6th round, Keaton Mitchell, East Carolina, is another guy similar to David Achane, where smaller size, but home run hitting ability, but you're going to get cheaper. Later on, Tank Bigsby, Auburn, I think is another guy to look at. Eric Gray, Oklahoma. We can go on and on. You mentioned Tajay Spears. Roshan Johnson from Texas is a guy, 6'2", 219, came to Texas as a quarterback. Never got starting or nod at Texas because of Bijan Robinson. But there's NFL personnel right now that think he can be in every down back in the league. And talk about toughness with Roshan Johnson at the Senior Bowl this week. First day of practice, early in practice, breaks a bone in his hand, finishes practice. They wouldn't let him finish the week after that. He wanted to. They wouldn't let him. Breaks a bone in his hand, finishes practice as a running back. Just tough. So the running backs are plenty in this draft, and there are backs to be had at all levels of this draft.
James,
one area. Go ahead, Jim.
James, I'm with you on this, man. As much as I loved having Joe on the team, man, I think they can go in another direction and not miss a beat with this and save some cap dollars there as well.
And reinvest that for sure. The one other point that we didn't mention, I think it's a need. I don't know if we're going to find the guy in the draft, is edge. Somebody that can be opposite Trey. Love Sam Hubbard. Love the way he can stop the run. What about just somebody that can get to the quarterback? Any value potentially that we can get early, top 3 rounds?
I think there's going to be some guys that could fall to 28 that may pose some value to the Bengals and maybe even available into the 2nd round. But there could be some developmental type guys too that I like here. There's Keon White, big guy from Georgia Tech, was down here at the Senior Bowl. 6'4", 280 pounds, sets the edge very well in the run game, offers some pass rush upside. Another guy that could be targeted 28, Felix Anadike Uzomah from Kansas State, younger guy, highly productive out of the Big 12. Also, like if you start getting down into that 2nd round area, Isaiah Foskey from Notre Dame was another double-digit sack guy, but the last 2 years at Notre Dame didn't really light up the Senior Bowl this week, but a guy who I think has kind of fallen down the board a little bit, could be a guy you take a risk on there in the 2nd round if he's there on the board. Another guy that 2nd round, maybe at this point even 3rd round, guy who was in the news a lot, Andre Carter from Army, because of the whole Congress had to go back and basically fix their boo-boo there, these players were allowed to finish their service requirements at a later date. They reversed that, then had to re-reverse that. So he is good to go if he is drafted and allowed to pursue his NFL career and finish his service commitments later. but he has got to get strong, and he almost may be a red shirt type guy and this happens with these service academy guys because they have such strict regimens that they have to keep up with as academy and servicemen that they're not SEC strong, so to speak, right? And that kind of got exposed this week at the Senior Bowl. Some of these bigger tackles kind of owned him in those pass rush drills, but he's got freak athleticism to be able to get to the quarterback. So you almost take a weight maybe as a sub package rusher in his first year, and while he's still getting in that NFL weight room, a guy who could just pay huge dividends in the future.
Yeah, Brian, I think we've hit a lot of position groups, man. Thanks for being with us, man. We love having you. I think this is your third or fourth time with us, bud. So we love having you, man. We love your insight. Let's talk about that safety position. I know, Jesse Bates, there's no way in hell the Bengals are going to pay him what he's asking for, especially with that agent he has. But Von Bell is still up in the air. Just kind of talk about your thoughts around that safety position, whether existing player or maybe a potential player in the draft as it relates to that position.
I really want them to re-sign Von Bell because he's another one of the guys that is a big locker room guy. I think, and he's one of the probably leaders of that defense, right? And it's you're probably going to lose Jermaine Pratt. You're definitely going to lose Jesse Bates. I don't want to lose all three. So I would kind of pay Von Bell a little bit. And I think, you're going to get him maybe, I'm going to say, you're not going to have to break the bank, I think, to bring him back. I really wish we could have got to see anything at all out of Tyson Anderson last year. And he was on IR the entire season. I liked his upside coming out of Toledo. He's another guy I saw at the Senior Bowl last year. So I wish we could have got to see anything out of him. I think they'll go into the year with him. If you bring back Bell, you can go into the year with Tyson Anderson as that third safety that's going to play a lot. So we'll get to see Dax Hills should take over for Jesse in the Jesse Bates role. That's what you drafted him for last year, right? I think that was, kind of in neon, right? We all saw where that was going when they drafted Hill. So we're going to see that. And I wouldn't be surprised if they brought in another, like a veteran safety to kind of like help out with if Anderson's not ready, you can probably get a bargain basement 1 year deal for $3 or $4 million guy to come in and, kind of help bridge that position if Anderson's not ready to go.
Gotcha. Tom?
Brian, popular guy at times is Drew Chrisman here. He's a local guy, good friend of the show. He's been a guest here. Great guy. Did a good job coming in and holding, although Mac had, maybe not the steadiest of years compared to his rookie year. But he was a little inconsistent, which was his badge. You're going to see some incredible superhuman punts, and then occasionally you're going to see a punt that leaves you scratching your head. Do you see them using a pick, maybe 5th, 6th, 7th round on a punter, and is that guy there?
I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I wouldn't have spent a pick on Evan McPherson, even as great as he's been. I'm pro never draft specialists at all. But no, I would not spend any draft capital at all on any of the special teams units or kicking unit, I should say. I think you can bring in a veteran punter to compete with Drew Chrisman in preseason. I think that's what they will do and they should do, or bring in a rookie free agent punter. There'll be those guys available. Heck, I mean, we've got 2 spring leagues coming up, the XFL and the USFL. One of those guys could be emerge and you bring them into camp as competition. So, and I would say the same thing with long snapper as well. I would bring in competition for Cal Adamitis. So, I think competition, that the only spot that shouldn't have competition is Mac. He's fine, but everybody else, hold their feet to the fire.
Okay, well,
there is one more. There is one more viewer question I want to hit on before we wrap up. Where could you get your hat? Or is it a 1 of 1 or a 1 of 2?
This is a limited edition 1 of 1.
1 of 1.
1 of 1. Yeah, my cousin designed this logo for me. I told him what I wanted, and he come up with it. I said, I love it. Let's go with that.
That's good. Well, Brian, you okay hanging around? Tom and I are kind of in this chat area. Are you okay finishing the show with us, talking about some of the other topics? You okay hanging around?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. I love it, man. Love it. Let's go. We got a couple more things we want to hit on. We're talking about AJ Green here in a minute, but guys, let's talk about James. I mean, let's talk about Coach Callahan, Coach Lou, and our quarterback coach, Coach Pritchard. Man, we've got some things we got to be concerned with here, man. When you're good, and your team's successful, these are the things we got to deal with.
It is. We thought maybe we could get through the offseason unscathed. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Maybe 2-3 guys go, depending on who gets the coordinator positions. I'll touch on Indianapolis here since it's right down the street. I think that head coaching job is going to come down to Callahan and the offensive coordinator in Philadelphia. Obviously probably talks are limited with the OC and Philly right now with everything that they've got going on, or it could be simply what we did when Zach was in the Super Bowl and we waited till after to make that announcement. I don't think Brian's been told no, but I think he's certainly a finalist. Irsay's a little bit quirky, so who knows what's going to happen there, but that's certainly one of the situations that we could lose it on the offensive side. Tom, do you want to talk about who's flying down to Tampa to interview for their offensive coordinator position?
Dan Pitcher, our quarterback coach, who is very important to Joe Burrow and very important to Zach Taylor and Brian Callahan. Very well respected. The organization loves him from top to bottom. Losing all those guys would be a blow. Certainly losing Brian Callahan and Dan Pitcher would be a massive blow. Hopefully if we do lose Brian Callahan to the Colts, he's going to at least give that enough time to see if he can stay here and be maybe elevated to offensive coordinator, which I think would be very logical. Evidently, he's very integral in putting the game plan together, particularly for our quarterback. So far as the other two, it's really a wait and see. Listening to some national experts, and we all know how we trust those here in Cincinnati. It does sound like Lou Anarumo is the leader, so to speak, to get the Arizona job. Evidently interviewed very well, gave them the answers they wanted. I'm a little surprised, despite the fact they've tried a couple of offensive coaches in the desert. It hasn't worked. Kind of like us. If Kyler Murray doesn't work, I don't think that franchise is going to work. So, and they're probably going to go defense with their first pick this year. So, but evidently he had a tremendous interview and he is the front runner to get that job. So far as what happens in Indy, James, I'll leave that up to you and your sources there in the Circle City. But
maybe because I'm obviously not in a position to make these decisions, but as an armchair analyst here, I just don't see why anybody would take either one of those jobs. Like the Colts is a dumpster fire. No, okay, go ahead, Brian.
For Lou Anarumo specifically, he's what, plus side of 50 now, right? How many more opportunities is he going to get a chance to be a head coach? If he's offered a head coaching job, he's got to take it. I don't care if it's a dumpster fire in Arizona or not.
Kyler Murray. But
I completely get what you're saying, but Lou's got to take that opportunity if it's offered to him.
Hey, Brian.
Like I'm a fan. Sorry, I'm a fan of Lou, and I want to see him do well. But I'd hate to see him go to a franchise like Arizona and be a one and done coach because the quarterback's just awful. But that's
Brian. I'm not very controversial, but I'm going to say something here. Most of the fans in Cincinnati were trying to run his ass out of town a few years ago. One of the worst defenses we've seen.
Some on the screen we're trying.
I'm not mentioning names. It's all of us. But it's funny how you go from there to almost being a head coach in the NFL. And look, I'm not bad-mouthing Lou. This guy's done an outstanding job. But how much of it is coaching? And the Bengals have spent a boatload of money in free agency the last few years to get this defense where it's at today. How much of it is players? How much of it is coaching, right? I don't know. I mean, Lou was coaching with nothing in the cover, man. There was nobody in that field that could help him. And his team really went out of their way. I know him fighting for a lot of players in free agency. He got the guys he needed, man. But you never know. This guy a year and a half, 2 years ago was We want him out of town, and now this guy literally is being interviewed for a head coaching position in the NFL. So,
well, it's the same with Zach Taylor. We wanted to bury him after the first year too, but
yep.
You love them when they're doing well, and I think the fear for Bengals fans is we're not used to doing well consecutively, and to see us doing well consecutively, we just don't want to make any changes to that magic, because the fear next year is you lose Brian, you lose Lou, and we come out next year and lay an egg. It's gonna drive us crazy, wondering is it because we lost a piece of that puzzle.
I think Jamie's got a great point. And that is, and it's not being the point is not being driven home enough here locally. These are the best 2 years, best 2 consecutive years in Bengal history. We've never had this much success in 2 years.
Back-to-back years, never.
They've maintained it, and the base is being built by the front office and by Coach Taylor for us to be dangerous for years to come. Charlie Weiss today on NFL radio was saying, look at the AFC, and he said, I look at Kansas City. They're going to be in contention about every year. He said, I look at Buffalo. I think they're going to be in contention every year. And he said, in Cincinnati went to the Super Bowl last year. They're not going anywhere. He said, they may have an off year. He said, but there's just as much a chance they're going to go to, if not win, the Super Bowl. So I think the Bengals are being built, every decision in mind, for let's be an elite team, not just above 500 team, not sneaking in as a wild card, but being a dominant elite team in the NFL, for the next 10 years, and everything goes right, and we win not just one, but more Super Bowls. I know our quarterback has that drive.
Right.
If we lose Lou, is Zimmer the top option at that point? Is that the first phone call?
He lives in Northern Kentucky. He's just a drive away from the stadium. That's for sure.
I would see him lasting long as a college defensive coordinator either.
Yeah, right. I just think he's my first call personally, but
I know who I'm making the first call to if Brian and pitcher both leave. And I'm calling Buffalo and their quarterback coach, Joe Brady. That's the guy that's the first guy I'm calling. I don't care what happened in Carolina. I know what his relationship with Joe Burrow is. That's the guy I want in my room.
Good point, Brian. Good point. Well, guys, let's switch gears a little bit here. We're getting to the end of the our last episode of season 3, but we'd be remiss, man, if we didn't talk about AJ Green's announcement today, guys. One of the greatest receivers in Cincinnati Bengals football history. We did a poll, I think, this morning on AJ Green. Who's the best receiver in Cincinnati Bengals history, and we put Chad Johnson up, Isaac Curtis, AJ Green, and Carl Pickens. I put on there. Chad got 60% of the votes. Obviously, flashy Chad, right? But dude, AJ, I am so glad we got to witness AJ in his prime here in Cincinnati, guys. This guy finished, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't have the numbers in front of it, number 2 all time in Bengals history receiving yards. This guy was a class act on and off the field. Him and Andy Dalton did it, and they did it quietly, and they did it really well together. And AJ Green was awesome, and what a classy guy. I'd love to see him in a Ring of Honor someday here, guys, would be my opinion.
100%.
He did it with class. Brian, you can probably touch on being an SEC guy out of Georgia when we drafted AJ 4th overall, but just a high quality guy. We drafted Andy that same year in round 2, and man, we struck lightning in a bottle with those two, and found our number 1 QB and number 1 wide receiver in that same draft. But I know there's a lot of talk when he came out with him and Julio Jones, who's had a great career as well. But maybe you want to elaborate a little bit on AJ and what your thoughts on him on his NFL career.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I can't speak to Isaac Curtis. I can't speak to Chris Collinsworth. Those were before my time, and I'm not much of an old NFL films go back and watch guys, so I can't speak to those guys. I know in my lifetime, the best receivers I've seen on this team were Chad Johnson and AJ Green, and I think AJ Green is just a better pure wide receiver than Chad was. Chad was great. Chad was always open, but the flash was – and the flash with Chad is what has him in everybody's mind.
Right.
I don't think AJ is going to end up as an NFL Hall of Famer, though, because of basically living in anonymity in Cincinnati during that decade. He never was an All-Pro. You can argue he should have been a couple of seasons, but he never was. That's why Julio Jones, I think, will be a Hall of Famer before AJ will. Bengals Ring of Honor, absolutely. Whenever they want to put him in. He deserves it. So, yeah, I loved AJ Green as a player.
Yeah,
I know, Brian, especially for me, and I do remember Isaac Curtis. My one of my first games was a monster game from Isaac Curtis. But I'll go with Ken Anderson, who's been here since 1971, with the exception of a few years gone. If he says Isaac Curtis is the best wide receiver in Bengals history, Isaac Curtis is the best wide receiver in Bengals history. I'm not going to go into that. I think AJ certainly had the most spectacular catches, though, of any Bengal in Bengal history. And this is just because you compliment one person, you're not downgrading another. I think so much of Andy Dalton's success was due to the incredible receiver that AJ Green was and the incredible leader he was in the locker room. And to come out and go to 7 straight Pro Bowls, have all those 1,000-yard receiving years, and very nearly was an extra one. Had he not had to fight the injury bug his last couple of years here, and I think that affected him even when he was in the desert. I do think he would have been a Hall of Famer. He was just maybe another typical AJ Green 1 or 2 years off of that. But boy, you look at his first 7 seasons, his best seasons. Yeah, he was well on his way. But wide receiver is a very deep position. Trying to get into the Hall of Fame, I think he'll be in the conversation at some point, but it will be difficult. But he'll always be thought of here, and I think he's one of the 2 best receivers in the history of the franchise.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's there's a lot of stuff. All these a couple Hail Marys that he called. The one against the city up north here at Paul Brown Stadium at the time that he called. I think another one in Baltimore, another Hail Mary, and all the great catches this guy's had. The one thing I remember the most, James and I were at this game down in Jacksonville, where this guy was a mild, calm, mild-mannered receiver on and off the field, and somehow Jalen Ramsey got under his skin, and we never seen AJ act like this. But he absolutely pummeled Jalen Ramsey on the field in Jacksonville. James and I were there to witness that, and that is what's funny to me. Knowing AJ Green on the field and off the field, to see him react like that, what the hell happened? He just snapped on Jalen Ramsey. So
that was out of character for him, and he got tossed that game. But I think that was just some emotion, some frustrations that came out there, and unfortunately, Ramsey was on the wrong side of AJ, not being so happy
out of him.
So. Yeah, Tony, any AJ Green memories you want to share?
Yeah, AJ was one of my favorite players. He's enshrined in my man cave here with the jersey and signed gloves and all that good stuff. And I remember running into him at the airport. He was so approachable, allowed pictures. We talked. It was great. So I really have a place in the heart here for AJ, and I look forward to whatever his next chapter in his book is, whether he continues in the football realm in some manner. But he was an excellent player, and always remember him.
Yeah. Let's
if you guys, sorry, I was going to say, if you guys want to go back and relive some of those spectacular catches we were just talking about, the Bengals actually posted a montage today on the official social channels with all those catches. The Hail Mary ones are absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I think somebody mentioned Raven Killer. Man, he had some big games against the Ravens, some crazy catches. So yeah, when it counted, he stepped up for sure.
Yep, no doubt. Great dude, great receiver, really fun to watch. Let's go ahead and hit this. We're going to have Brian stay on for this.
Preview. This is the 2-minute warning.
Brian. So we're closing out the show. That's our 2-minute warning. Brian, we'll start with you. Just talk about the season this year and your thoughts. We'll kind of go around the horn here.
I was more emotionally distraught last season when it came to a close, and than I was with the loss to KC last week. I think now I doubted if we could ever get back there again, because it was like so shocked at last year's run. This year now I expect us to be in this situation every year, and then we'll be back.
There you go. I'm with you.
Who's next? Tony?
I don't know who changed it. There we go.
Yeah, looking forward to next year. Kind of withdrawal trying to do on those weekends and working through our football stuff. But effort phenomenal. Can't express enough how well it's been for us to be able to raise that kind of money for the charities, and look forward to everybody next year, and we'll have a big goal for us. So that's all I have.
Tom?
I want to thank you guys for keeping me around, for busting your butts every week, doing such a fantastic job. Every face you see on here, the charity, the production, Jamie and I texting each other, bouncing ideas off each other all week in different ways to torture Jimmy. Just everything. But it is so much fun to be with you, and also to everybody who watches every week. You make it possible, and you make it so much fun. And while we don't do politics on this show, and this is in no way an endorsement of anybody, this is no balloon or anything else, I'd like to thank the president for backing up the State of the Union an hour, knowing that he couldn't go against our audience, and just knowing that we would kick his butt. So I would like to thank the president for backing up the State of the Union to 9 o'clock. I don't even think he's on yet. Probably, somewhere in the Capitol building watching us himself. So, or has some advice watching us. So, no, thanks for everybody. And please keep in tune on Twitter, all of Jimmy's social pages. Thursday night, we will be on. We're just trying to dial in the time of when the announcement is made, good or bad, for Ken Riley. We're optimistic. We're hoping for the best. It should be for the best. And, immediately thereafter, kind of like the Bengals this year, when they walked off the field at Kansas City, the next year started. When we hear about Ken Riley, we'll either still be fighting for him, but we'll also be fighting just as much for guys named Anderson and Ken and Willie. So, and with that, you know what? Because it's our last show. I don't know if
Are we doing this? Are we doing this?
Deep snap it. I'm going to try and deep snap this.
Oh, jeez. This is not.
What the hell is going on?
Here we go, Jamie. You got
I
it.
feel like I should be washing this off the way he was just doing that. I don't know what the hell that was. Sorry I missed last week, guys. I didn't really get a chance to talk about the end of the season and the final game, so I won't. I know you guys did a lot of talk about that last week, so I won't rehash that. But always fun doing this show. Obviously, the charity aspect is amazing, and I don't get to come down as much as I would like to. Hopefully next year that will change. But just thankful for everyone who watched the show and all the people I get to meet when I come down there. Always very nice to me, and Bengals fans are the best. And every city says that, I know, but even traveling to some of these road games and seeing the fans at away games and all the charity work that you guys are doing, tough fan base to beat. So thanks for watching, guys. Another great season. James?
I hear Jamie's agent is negotiating next year's contract for him to be on Sleeveless Everly
Yeah.
So.
Hey, James,
I just want to let you guys know, I apologize in advance. I do have the same agent as Jesse Bates. So.
James, we got to
Got you out of jail.
Yeah. Sleeveless Jamie back for season 4. But just thank you to everybody that tunes in, everybody that comes to the tailgates, everybody that's part of the fun, whether we're in away city, home, or wherever we are. And thanks to everybody you see on the screen here, whether it's a guest, whether it's Tom trying to get a guest lined up, whether it's Jimmy getting a guest lined up. This is an hour show that takes so many hours leading up to it to put together. There's so much legwork that goes in that a lot of people don't realize, and just know that we're thankful. I think if you look back at season 3, just the stars we've had on, from the experts to the former players to the current players, it was an epic season 3. And thank you to everybody for tuning in. And last thing I'll touch on is the charity work. It's a big portion of what we do. I remember 5 years ago, sitting in Lot D, which was our old tailgate spot, with Jimmy saying, "Hey, this is fun. We enjoy the Bengals, but what else can we do? And Kenny Anderson Alliance was our first charity, and we've seen it evolve to 25 plus this year and hundreds of thousands of dollars raised. So thank you for that. And Jimmy, go ahead and end it.
Yeah, and don't forget Kay Adams was on the show. I just one of my favorites. But
she was on twice, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was on once. It was a big one.
Same breath as Brian and Kay Adams as our resident experts.
Look, I guess what's interesting, I want to thank everybody on this screen, guys. I think it's just unbelievable. The draft show 2020 when we couldn't go to Vegas, and Jamie and James and I were talking, hey, let's just do a virtual draft party. And we got like Dave Lapham and Willie Anderson and a bunch of other players on that night. And we had several thousand people watching live that because everybody was locked up in their home because of COVID. And we've continued this since that April draft of 2020, man. And I want to thank everybody on the screen for the work you guys put in. We're not making a damn dime on this. Nobody's obligated to do anything. So from adding Mark to the show, Tony, and everything that everybody else is doing, and you guys on the screen, we appreciate you guys a lot, man. It's just unbelievable where this thing has gone. I'll tell you, Thursday night, I'll reiterate, Thursday night, we will be on air. Kind of stay tuned on timing on that. We hope to have some very, very exciting and good news Thursday night about Ken Riley. So stay tuned on social media for those announcements. I want to thank all of our charities this year that we've worked with. They appreciate everything that you guys did from Houday Nation. I want to thank all of our sponsors, not just sponsors of our show, sponsors of the tailgate, the food sponsors, the Betfred, the Gold Stars, the Camp Washingtons, I'm missing names, James, but man, I'll tell you what, man, they were very instrumental in it. Cincinnati Music Accelerator, good grief, Kickley, how can I forget Kick? Without those guys, they were helping us with our charities. They're helping us with food. They're helping us with all kinds of stuff across the board. The tailgate, the show, the meet and greets we did out of town. Guys, down in New Orleans at 11 o'clock in the afternoon on a morning and a Saturday, Craig, Beerfest Craig, talks to us and he goes, hey, man, let's just do a get-together now. I got a place that's willing to host us and kind of lock it up for us. We just blasted out on social media. I don't know how many people we had there, Tony. It was several thousand. I had to lock people out, not let people in. Brian, did you get in that night?
I was there. It was awesome.
That was a last-minute thing. So, thanks to Dell Hall, 16 Lots, Beerfest Craig, and all the meet and greets, you guys were unbelievable. The away game tailgates. This is how it's going to be for a long time, Houday Nation. It's exciting to see all that. I want to also say thanks to everybody, and I do want to throw out a special thank you to my wife, Trisha. Tomorrow is our 32nd anniversary, and I'm taking her out to eat. We're going to go down to Ruby's downtown and have some food. But without our loved ones and our spouses, they know we all love this, what we're doing as a hobby. And for them putting up with us, there's a special place in heaven for all these women for us. I tell you that. So, guys, we appreciate you being part of this. Remember, we're going to have a schedule out, what we're going to be doing in the off season here. This is the end of season 3, but we are going to have some special episodes coming up here in the off season, and we will probably have Brian on multiple times around draft time as well. So we appreciate you for being part of this. We expect even bigger and better things next year. And we love you guys. We'll see you here Thursday night. Houday, everybody.
Houday.
Houday.
Houday.